This is day 166 for Sunday, June 14th, 2020, focusing on Psalms 56 through 61. So I have more brief notes on these Psalms, these 6, 7, 8, 9, 60, 61, these 6 Psalms that we have for today. Psalm 56 is a miktam of David. Remember, we don't really know what miktam means, but it's under the circumstances when the Philistines seized him at Gath. Psalm 56, verse 9 says, "This I know, that God is for me." Even with all the enemies around him and also being in the land of the Philistines, David still trusts in God. So it's God who provides for him and gives for him. And so if you are ever finding yourself battling giants, remember David versus Goliath, that story of the Bible. Goliath was a Philistine. And so the idea is that David is in the presence of giants and those who are intimidating in this land of Gath as a foreigner, that David is still putting his trust not in the strength of giants, but in God. Another miktam of David is found in Psalm 57, when he fled from Saul and was hiding in a cave. It says in Psalm 57, verse 1, "In the shadow of your wing I take refuge, until the destroying storms pass by." I'm reflecting upon here the idea of being stuck and trapped in violent storms. I've never personally been, around when a tornado has struck, though I've heard it's incredibly terrifying. And that, the time and the moments might be just a few minutes, but it can feel incredibly long when your heart is pounding, your adrenaline is running, and that you are feeling, very alive and aware of your fragility in that moment. Fear makes our time and our experiences seem like they're longer and last a long time. And so even in the midst of that fear, as King David was running away from Saul and hiding in a cave, that he felt that God was protecting him and taking refuge, and that God would keep him safe in the midst of the storms raging on. So may you, if you feel that there are storms in your lives, may you pray to God, take a breath, and feel covered by God's grace during that time. Psalm 58 is another miktam of David. This is a little one that I selected apart that I just really find troubling. In Psalm 58:10 it says, "The righteous will rejoice when they see vengeance done. They will bathe their feet in the blood of the wicked." Now, this imagery of bathing your feet in the blood of the wicked is just something that appalls me. It's sad and hard to hear because by my nature, I'm a peacemaker. I like things being calm without conflict. But yet, I see righteousness and vengeance as kind of opposites, especially in the Christian definition where we have Jesus who does not bathe himself in the blood of his enemies, but pours out his own blood at the hands of enemies in order to redeem our lives, in order to show us that there is life beyond death and beyond vengeance and violence in the way that the world tends to operate in that cycle. So may we be ones who do not seek to bathe our feet in the blood of our enemies. In Psalm 59, another miktam of David, this is under the circumstances when Saul ordered his house to be watched in order to kill David. And remember that Saul's daughter invites David to run away and gives him some heads up that it would be Michal, I believe is her name, give David some heads up to go out and flee because your life is not safe. So in Psalm 59:12 it says, "For the sin of their mouths, the word of their lips, let them be trapped in their pride." I selected this one because it relates directly to Psalm 58, where David asks for his enemies, vengeance to come upon his enemies. So here is another form of letting vengeance come upon your enemies, but this is a little bit more passive. This is one which is still, in some sense, I find kind of difficult. Praying to God that somebody be cursed, essentially, harmed. But it's a little more passive. It's one step removed. It's saying, let people who bring wickedness and mischief, let them suffer by their own wickedness. Let them suffer, get a taste of their own medicine in that sense. Suffer from their own hands and their own sense of violence. So Psalm 60 is another miktam of David. And we have when he struggled with Aram, two groups of Aram, the Arameans. And then Job responded by killing 12,000 Edomites. So this is a psalm of thanksgiving for victory in battle. In verse 60:10, saying, "Have you not rejected us, O God? You do not go out, O God, with our armies." So King David was feeling as if he needed a savior, and that savior came in the form of Joab and not from God as he expected. He was hoping that God would provide him victory. That's a very common theme in the Psalms of David. God, please grant me victory. And so when he doesn't get and receive victory, David is feeling rejection from God and wondering what happened. Closing our discussion of the Psalms for today is Psalm 61. It's another Psalm of David, and it says in verse 1 and 2, "Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call to you when my heart is faint." David is pretty consistent. He calls out to God. He writes psalms to God. He uplifts prayers and songs to God, giving thanks when God shows up and grants him victory, calling out and lament when he feels God is absent and far away. But he always trusts in God. He calls out to God because what else can he do? He loves God. He believes God is at work in his life. He knows that God is powerful and capable of giving him what he essentially wants and hopes for. He knows that it's a little bit much to always expect that from God, but he pushes that line a lot by repeatedly asking God over and over for the things he wants. So may we not be ashamed to ask God for what we want. May we also be, pretty thoughtful in what we ask for. May we not ask for the blood of our enemies, but may we ask for peace, wholeness, transformation of our enemies, so that our enemies no longer oppose, justice and oppose the good that we hope to seek in the world, but that they stand with us and change their tune. So here's our hope in God, and may we continue to hear some of the Psalms capturing all these different ideas that the Psalms contain.